With every Halo game came new features and aspects that made the game visually awesome and fun to play. Although not every Halo game carried over what was established in previous games, and a lot of players certainly missed these parts of Halo, whether that's Playable Elites, good looking explosions, or just a well told story. In this video we're going to go over some of the features and aspects of Halo that were missing from Halo Infinite and should return for the next Halo game. We're going to go through this game by game. For any features that I miss out, do write them down in the comments below. So let's get straight into this, starting with Halo Combat Evolved, the game that started it all. Halo CE was groundbreaking and set the standard for FPS games on console, but even this Halo has some features not seen in Infinite or even any other Halo. A lot of players like to try and keep their Marines alive for as long as possible, and one feature that could help with this was the UI displaying the health of your fellow soldiers when they enter one of your vehicles. This was exclusive to Combat Evolved and never made it into any other Halo. In every Halo game, the heads-up display is pretty clean, so adding the health of your comrades doesn't really add much clutter, as it's useful information to the player. I don't just think they should bring this feature back, but they should expand on it. Make it so we can see our Marines' health whenever they are close to us. This could be displayed like it is in Combat Evolved in the corner of the screen, or simply a small health bar on top of their heads, whichever one looks cleanest. It doesn't have to be there all the time. If the player runs off ahead of the Marines, I wouldn't expect the game to keep displaying that information, but if you stick with them, it's good information to have. It would also be nice to have their name displayed like in Halo Reach. Now, talking about the Marines, another feature absent from Halo Infinite is allowing your troops to sit on the side of a Scorpion tank. I noticed this straight away in Infinite, as I enjoyed loading up the Razorback with troops, but when you finally have enough EXP to unlock the Scorpion, only one Marine can ride with you operating a machine gun turret. Why even take this out? It's been a staple of every Halo and surely not too difficult to implement, but I wouldn't just bring it back, I would expand on this as well. For instance, sometimes the tank will get hit by heavy weapons. While you and your machine gun operator should be fine, the troops riding the Scorpion may die when this happens. Simply add a feature telling the Marines to hop off the Scorpion with a button prompt, and when it's safe to move on, use the same prompt to summon them back. Troops riding on tanks is not exactly unrealistic either, as there is plenty of footage of this happening in the real world, in past and in present conflicts. Halo CE had a small but strong sample of weapons given to the player, but some of these iconic weapons are nowhere to be seen in Halo Infinite. The weapons I'm referring to here are the Magnum, the classic pump action shotgun, and the plasma rifle. The sidekick is a good pistol, no doubt about that, and I'm not saying a pistol like it shouldn't be in Halo, but I don't think it should be taking the spot of one of Halo's most iconic weapons of all time. The Magnum has a place in Halo, and while it was not always as good as it has been in Halo CE, namely Halo 2 and Halo 3, it is unmistakably synonymous with Halo and its sandbox. Bring back the Magnum either as a primary UNSC pistol, or as a more powerful alternative to the sidekick. The M90 shotgun is also a special weapon for Halo. The Bulldog, in my opinion, should just be ditched entirely. It lacks the ability to get a one-shot kill, which removes a lot of the satisfaction from using a shotgun in Halo. While you could kill an enemy in multiplayer at range with the shotgun, or enemies in the campaign after a few shots, using the shotgun was supposed to give you the confidence to get up close and personal with the enemy. It was also a great counter to the energy sword, and Infection just hasn't been the same without it. If it was brought back, it would be nice to see it be as effective as it was in Halo Combat Evolved, but if balancing is a concern, reduce the amount of shells that the weapon can hold in its tube. The plasma rifle, heavily associated with the Elites, has been MIA for a while now, save for being added to Halo 5's multiplayer late in the game's life cycle. Admittedly, the plasma rifle was not always the best weapon to pick, with many other better options afforded to the player, but a weapon can be featured in Halo without having to be perfect for multiplayer. Sometimes it's just nice to have iconic weapons just built for the campaign. Let's be honest, the pulse carbine isn't exactly great in PvP, so we might as well have a plasma weapon that we all know and love, even if this is not going to be that great. Make the plasma rifle great again. In Halo CE, the plasma rifle was a great alternative to the assault rifle, and while it lacked the rate of fire and the ammo capacity of the AR, it did good shield damage and could also knock back and slow down enemies that were shot by it. With some tinkering, this could make it balanced for multiplayer, and even if not, it would be great to just see this iconic Covenant weapon back in the Halo campaign. With all of these cool weapons to use, how about being able to use them in a variety of locations? Many have spoken about it, but Halo Infinite has a serious lack of variety in its locations and its biomes. It's either Pacific Northwest, Banished Interior, or Foreigner Interior. They all look fantastic in Halo Infinite, and this is helped by returning to the classic art style, which I commend 343 for embracing, and they should continue this with the next game. But please, can we get some missions that freshen up the experience? For example, in Combat Evolved, you start by fighting on the Pillar of Autumn, land in a canyon reminiscent of the Pacific Northwest biome that encompasses all of Halo Infinite. We raid a Covenant ship, explore a small island on one of Halo's oceans, traverse snowy ravines on Foreigner bridges, and on the ground in the valleys themselves. We even visit a creepy swamp housing a flood containment facility. This is all in the first Halo game, and would be expanded on in future games. Take Delta Halo as an example from Halo 2, the Ark as an example from Halo 3, Exodus as an example from Halo Reach, Reach, and Infinity as an example from Halo 4. Infinite tried to do open world, it didn't really stick the landing. Go back to more linear missions, they don't have to be entirely linear, but this allows the missions to take place in different locations, therefore adding some visual variety and allowing the developers to be more creative. Joining us on the journey through these different biomes should be some likable characters. The pilot was okay, not great but not terrible either, but he wasn't special. I was never that excited to see him, and at times found his doom and gloom annoying, and much preferred the company of the Marines riding in my Razorback, who seemed to be much more enthusiastic about facing impossible odds. I give you Exhibit A, Sergeant Johnson.
Man, we let those dumb bugs out to the middle of nowhere to keep them from getting their filthy claws on Earth. But we stumbled onto something that's so hot for that they're scrambling over each other to get it. Well, I don't care if it's God's own anti-son-of-a-bitch machine or a giant hula hoop, we're not gonna let them have it. What we will let them have is a belly full of lead and a pool of their own blood to drown in. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am.
In the first cutscene of Halo Combat Evolved, this character is established as charismatic, tough, brave, and just generally awesome. While in the first game he is mostly just a side character with little importance to the story, whenever he is on screen you can feel his presence. On a side note, if you want to know which character inspired Sergeant Johnson, you should check out my video, Similarities Between Aliens and Halo. Also, if you are enjoying the video, do please leave a like and consider subscribing. In future Halo games, Johnson's role would become more important to the story, which would in turn make him more likable to the player. Johnson never complained about anything. The man would get captured numerous times and take a serious beating, but just gets up and keeps going. Yes, technically in the lore he is a Spartan, being a part of the Orion project, which is the predecessor to the Spartan 2 program. For the plot of Halo CE 2 and 3, this fact is irrelevant, as Johnson is the man who always has your back throughout the story, whether that is fighting by your side or just quipping funny one-liners.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Halo needs strong supporting casts of characters with the same motivation as Chief to get the job done, and often that job in Halo is not just stopping the Covenant but a far more dangerous threat. I present to you the third faction. Not every game needs a third faction, as we've seen in ODST and in Reach, but if we are diving heavily into foreigner installations or planets, there is usually something waiting for us. In Halo CE this was the Flood. While I'm not saying the Flood has to return, because if they do it usually brings with it major implications for the story, a third faction allows the story to play with new ideas. For instance, in Halo CE with the reveal of the Flood, we learn the true purpose of the Halo rings and why it's so important they're contained. In many ways in Halo 4, the Prometheans are tied to the Flood, as they were built to fight the infestation, but they were also important to Halo 4's story, as they were the Didact's personal army and the result of another foreigner superweapon, that being the Composer. The Prometheans were not perfect, but neither were the Flood. Early reviews of Halo CE actually critiqued the Flood as not being fun to fight. People said the same for the Prometheans. I personally don't share either opinion, as I had fun fighting both factions, and I enjoyed it when I would see them either fighting the Covenant or the Sentinels. In Halo Infinite, we are told about the Endless, but never really see them save for the Harbinger. We do have the Skimmers, but they are not really a third faction, but rather just a replacement for the drones, as they are quickly incorporated into the ranks of the Banished. So if done right, a third faction can benefit Halo for its gameplay and for its story, but for the next game, the devs need to remember to show and not just tell. Which brings me to my next point, that is the cutscenes and the story. You see, in Halo Infinite, all of the cutscenes go for a one-take approach. This works in films like 1917, where the story follows two soldiers as they deliver a message to a field commander to hold off an attack. But Halo is much bigger than that with the story it is telling. For instance, look at the opening cutscene for Halo 2. It is perfect and might be the best cutscene in all of Halo. It recaps to us the events of the first game, shows us the perspective of the Covenant, and introduces us to the Arbiter, our lens into the Covenant. We see how outraged the Covenant are to see the loss of the Halo ring, as well as meeting new species of the Covenant, the Brutes, who become very important to Halo's story. We were also reintroduced to Master Chief, seeing he safely made it back to Earth, with some new armor to boot. It then sets up the first mission of the game, with Cairo Station going on full alert to an imminent Covenant attack. Compare this to Halo Infinite, where the opening cutscene gives no context for what's going on. The Infinity is getting battered by the Banished, and Chief is getting his ass handed to him by Atriox. This sets up the UNSC being scattered, true, but that's literally it. We don't learn about the build up to this battle, we don't see Aatrox again until right before the credits roll, with him being entirely absent from the length of the game. With the decision to go for a one-take sequence, it would make a scene explaining the events building up to this point difficult to produce, but simply make it so the camera moves around and cuts to different angles. This adds options for the storytelling to get opened up a lot more. And you can see this with many other parts of the story as well. A lot of cutscenes are simply the camera panning around Chief as he talks to the weapon. I think it's good that Halo Infinite does have a few moments where we see the Banished from their headquarters, but these are few and far between. It's because of this one-take style of cutscene we rarely see anything, and instead it's just characters chanting exposition. The next Halo needs to go back to having cutscenes with multiple angles and perspectives, show us the Banished more often so we can see how they operate as a faction and as a society, include epic fun sequences like Chief blowing up an assault carrier. How would this have been possible to show with a one-take perspective? It simply couldn't be done in the same level of greatness that was shown in Halo 2. Time to move on now to some of the gameplay additions brought with Halo 2, and the big one of course was dual wielding. Straight off the bat with Halo 2, Chief will get what he asked for.
I need a weapon. Right this way.
Armed with a BR, you can pick up an SMG, or 2 SMGs if you wish. Balancing it aside, you now have double the firepower, at the cost of some accuracy, but for close quarters, so who cares? Using 2 guns at the same time is awesome, and with Halo Sandbox you can switch this up, being able to use a variety of weapon combinations. Of course, getting this balance for multiplayer may cause some problems, but I'd rather have it there and not be as useful in multiplayer than not have it at all. Before we had advanced movement introduced to Halo, this was one way the game made you feel like a super soldier, like a Spartan. Dual wielding would return in Halo 3, where it was just as fun as it was in Halo 2, minus dual needlers of course, but after this, it was missing from every Halo game save for Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer. Dual wielding should come back to Halo. It is sorely missed, and like the plasma rifle, it doesn't necessarily have to be good in multiplayer. Sometimes it's fun to just have things for the PvE experience. Another major aspect of Halo 2 was of course Playable Elites. For the rest of Bungie's tenure of the Halo series, our Sangheili friends would be a playable species in every Halo game. A major part of this was playing as the Arbiter in Halo 2's campaign. The gameplay was mostly the same as playing as Chief, just with the added feature of active camouflage. In Halo 2 and 3, you could play as an elite in multiplayer whenever you wanted. Granted, most people would play as a Spartan, as it was seemingly easier to kill an elite than it was a Spartan, but it was cool that it was there, and an option nonetheless. In Halo 3, you could unlock armor for your elites, just like you could for your Spartan, and this would even be revisited in a season in MCC, simply called Elite. But in my opinion, the best inclusion of elites in multiplayer was in Halo Reach. In most game modes, you would have to play as a Spartan, but in certain game modes, elites would be playable, and the best example of this is Invasion. It's a brilliant game mode that shows not everything has to be symmetrical gameplay. In Reach, the elites did have bigger hitboxes than Spartans and were even a bit taller than them, but no one really minded because this game mode had multiple stages to it, increasing the pacing and fun as the game went on. It also felt like you was playing out a battle from the lore in multiplayer. But ever since Reach, we have not been able to play as an elite in multiplayer. Players have been crying out loud for this to come back for many years now. It is always a hot topic of discussion on Halo forums and Reddit. With the move to the Unreal Engine, this is the perfect time for Halo Studios to bring our Hinge Head pals back to the playing field. Bring back Invasion with them, and let's get customizable armor like there was in Halo 3. But do you know who else should come back for the next Halo game? Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. Yes, ODSTs, the Special Forces of the UNSC, were introduced in Halo 2. First mentioned in Halo The Fall of Reach, which at the time of its release, just before Halo CE, Bungie were not huge fans of it, but in time they would warm to the book's existence and all the lore and ideas that came with it. One of those ideas being the ODSTs. So thanks Eric Nyland. These guys are seriously cool, and there is a lot of following for them in the fanbase, with many people creating ODST cosplays and even functioning airsoft guns of their iconic weapons. The ODST helmet has always been a popular option in Halo's multiplayer, even to this very day. In Halo 2, we see them in action for the first time, dropping to Delta Halo's surface with the Master Chief to quickly set up an LZ for the rest of the troops. They return in Halo 3 and accompany you on the level, the Ark, and the Covenant for some epic set-piece battles. And how can we ignore that they even got an entire game dedicated to them? Halo 3 ODST, the first time in Halo where we play as a regular human. But they are nowhere to be seen in Halo 4, Halo 5, or in Halo Infinite, despite being brought up a lot in recent novels such as Halo Outcasts. There is also many ODST stationed on the UNSC Infinity, and yet none are seen in any of the 343 Industries games. They don't have to replace regular Marines in all instances, but why not get them back in for the next game for a big battle sequence? Continuing with the topic of of big battle sequences, how about we get some of those in the next Halo? In addition to that, let's get lots of vehicles and play at the same time for both the UNSC and the enemy faction, be it the Covenant or the Banished. The only moment that somewhat feels like this in Infinite is towards the end of the game, where you approach the House of Reckoning in a Scorpion tank. I appreciate that this sequence is there, but it pales in comparison to some of the levels we get in Halo 3. In my previous video about vehicles that only appear in Halo once, I talked about how fun it was taking the Prowler for a spin on the level of the Ark, with all the troops mounted up with heavy weapons, weaving through sandy ravines to take out a platoon of Covenant troops, and then some anti-air raids. Then this is followed by the Forward Unto Dawn landing in epic fashion, where we use a Scorpion, push through enemy lines, blowing up ghosts, hunters and phantoms, and then for an epic showdown with the Scarab. The Scarabs made for some of the most memorable moments in all of Halo, and I have replayed the missions that feature them more than any other in Halo. To fight a Scarab, it wouldn't be right to do it without putting out all the stops. Heavy weapons, lots of UNSC troops, ground vehicles, air vehicles, it was all there when a Scarab showed up. The inclusion of a Scarab battle in the next Halo would be a huge win for the game and for Halo Studios. Why not even mix it up and add in a Grunt Goblin at the same time, just to spice things up a little? When you do take down a Scarab, you're rewarded with a dopamine rush, largely thanks to the huge explosion that comes from destroying one of these things. Which, speaking of, the next Halo needs to bring back real good looking explosions. One of my biggest disappointments for Halo Infinite was the effects and the explosions. They are the worst they have ever been in the series. You will notice when destroying a Phantom in Halo Infinite, there's a mild pop and a bang, and that's it. Compare this to Halo 3 and Halo Reach, where there's a wide bright explosion, and sound effects followed by the debris of the ship falling to the ground, tumbling around the playable space. Do away with vehicles flashing red, letting the player know they're about to explode. Bring back photorealistic looking flames and smoke, and a big bang to see the end to these war machines. In Infinite, the explosions resemble more of a liquid looking splash rather than something actually going kaboom.
Kaboom?
Yes, Rico. Kaboom.
What else was an explosive moment in Halo? Well, that would have to be the epic driving sections, of course. They don't have to be at the end of the game like in Halo C or in Halo 3's final mission, Halo. It could be similar to Halo 2, where you have one relatively early on in the tunnels of New Mombasa, or at the start of the final mission on Halo Reach. While in Halo Infinite you will be doing a fair amount of driving, but this is just to get from one place to another quickly. Unlike in previous Halos, these driving sections were usually a frantic rush to save the day, which invokes a feeling of being an action hero racing against the clock. Like I said, it doesn't have to be the end of the game, but something akin to this should be in the next Halo. It doesn't even have to be in a Warthog, as we have seen in Halo 4. The traditional Warthog run was exchanged for a Star Wars-like trench run in a broadsword, flying through the trenches and tunnels of the Didact ship. You know what was another cool mission involving a starfighter? Tip of the Spear from Halo Reach. In this mission, you will pilot a Saber with the aim of delivering a bomb to a Covenant supercarrier. My point here isn't to bring back the Saber or the broadsword, even though that would be really cool. My point is to bring back a unique level to the campaign where we operate a vehicle not seen in any other part of the campaign. Tip of the Spear is the example from Halo Reach, but in Halo 4 you could fly a Pelican for the first time outside of Reach's Easter egg, and as I mentioned, you can fly a broadsword in the final mission. These are special moments in Halo, and why not take it up a notch and let us pilot something entirely new, such as a Scarab, or even something insane like a UNSC frigate or a captured Covenant cruiser. We could have a real space battle in Halo unlike anything ever seen before, and only ever mentioned in the novels. This is an area where Halo Studios could really play around with the Unreal Engine. They are not hamstrung by the proprietary Slipspace engine anymore, and this could make for a really unique playable experience in Halo. As well as having a special and unique mission, Halo Reach had a really good theme throughout its campaign. That theme, or at least one of them, is a very military feeling, from the very start during the opening cutscene, right to the very end of the game where you create an LZ for Captain Keyes. For reference, if you didn't know, the first Halo is called Combat Evolved to make the game appear more like a military shooter. While not strictly military, the themes are there from the onset, in particular with Sergeant Johnson giving his speech to his men. Reach was the game that nailed this the most.
Control to Lima 4. Permission to commence bombing run. Heading 224.6, over.
Kilo 26s, Kilo 40, Covenant Corvettes raining hell on us. Final protective fire 1. Danger close, my command, over.
Copy, Kilo 40. Firing FPF-1 at your command.
Spartan, Sergeant Major Duval. Awful day so far. Let's keep it from getting any worse, huh? Coverage all over my missile batteries, and I got 5,000 civilians across the bay waiting for passage out. I need you to arm those batteries, then fire those missiles from the central terminal. Understood? Corvette's been a pain in my ass for too damn long. Give it hell, Spartan.
While the UNSC doesn't have to be present on every mission in the next Halo, When they are, let's make them feel like they are there in force. Even if they are outmatched and outgunned, make it seem like they are putting in everything they can to win this war. Whether this is the use of military jargon or talking to UNSC officers and commanders, it reminds the players that we are a part of a war machine and that they are serious about completing their objectives. It also helps lend a tone of realism to the game, as the UNSC and its staff and soldiers are somewhat based off of real modern militaries, much like those found in the NATO alliance. And with a sprinkle of colonial marines seen in Aliens. Again, I done a video comparing Aliens and Halo, do check it out. But how about a very useful vehicle for getting these soldiers around? Sure, in Infinite we have the Warthog and the Razorback, but we can't drive over every obstacle. One vehicle that was perfect for this was the UH-144 Falcon, so far only featured in Halo Reach, but it's hopefully coming to Infinite, but even if it does, I doubt it will be added to the campaign. The Falcon was a fantastic vehicle, able to dish out decent firepower and carry 2 passengers using side-mounted weapons. It's probably the most requested vehicle to return to a Halo game. We even need to see it make a return or something similar. A great contender for this position would be the Sparrowhawk from Halo Wars. It is a powerful and quick attack aircraft with a variety of different weapons. Devs would have to make it so it can carry friendly NPCs and Spartans in multiplayer, but it could fill in the niche of an air attack and transport vehicle very nicely. The Banshee will always have its place as a quick and nimble alien strike aircraft, but does the Wasp really do it for you as the UNSC counterpart? I'd pick the Falcon any day over the Wasp personally, so here's hoping the Falcon comes to Halo Infinite and also makes it into the next Halo game. But it's not just the vehicles and weapons that make a Halo game complete. For a Halo game to be complete at launch, it needs to release with some key game modes. Forge. The next Halo needs to have Forge on day one. It wasn't too bad for Halo 5, with Forge releasing about 2 months after the game's launch, with pre-existing Forge maps being available since the Halo 5 beta, but Halo Infinite was a crime, with its release window for Forge being well over a year after the game was released. Forge allows players to create content for the game. This content then gets added to the multiplayer rotation, taking some pressure off the devs to churn out content, and some of these maps look so good they could be mistaken for developer-made maps using the game engine itself. In addition to Forge, the game needs to either release with Firefight or Spartan Ops, or even both. A third PvE experience is a really important piece of content to have in Halo. Not all of us want to play PvP, or sometimes you just need a break from the sweatiness of Halo multiplayer. When Firefight was added to Halo Infinite, it caused a mini revival of the game. Fighting Halo's roster of aliens is plain and simple fun, one of the greatest gameplay loops in gaming in my opinion, and the option to do this outside of campaign needs to be there on day one. We also need to have multiplayer classics like Griffball, Infection and Oddball from day one as well. There could be no excuses for it this time around. For Halo 5 and Infinite, players had to wait a long time to get these features, and some like Griffball still do not exist in Halo Infinite to this very day. Furthermore, for multiplayer, let's get a decent progression and unlock system. Don't restrict everything to challenges, let challenges supplement the game like in Halo Reach and MCC. Allow us to get to certain ranks in multiplayer, at which point we will straight up unlock an armor piece or weapon skin, or allow us to buy them with credits or experience points. I almost forgot to mention it. How can I forget one of the coolest aspects of Halo Reach, that being Assassinations. These were introduced in Halo Reach as a way of getting a cool animated kill on an unsuspecting enemy. While it doesn't provide any sort of benefit to the player, because a backstab or a backsmack is quicker and leaves you less vulnerable, Assassinations are another one of those things where it solely exists for the rule of cool. It is greatly satisfying seeing your Spartan take down an enemy in such a fluid and sometimes brutal fashion. It was a small nugget of gameplay that reminded you that you are playing as an advanced super soldier, and for a time 343 Industries would keep Assassinations in future Halos, as they were present in Halo 4 and in Halo 5. But like a lot of things mentioned in this video, Assassinations are entirely absent from Halo Infinite, which is a big shame because Infinite's enemies do have some really good looking designs. I mean, they look really cool and very reminiscent of enemies we faced in Halo 3 and in Halo Reach. Imagine how awesome it would be to get an assassination kill on a Brute Chieftain or even Jaeger Redomni. I'm hoping with the next Halo, the enemies maintain their awesome appearances and Assassinations return so we can take them down in stylized ways. And quickly, let's go over Halo 4. One thing that I really appreciated about Halo 4 was the story. I enjoyed how this game gave more personality to Master Chief. The voice actor for Chief, Steve Downes, has said similar things in many different interviews. We did get some of this in Halo Infinite, which I do commend 343 for doing so, but Halo 4 did it the best. Let the next Halo be a continuation of Master Chief's story and character development. Give the moment a man to talk one-to-one with various characters. We have seen it with Cortana, Del Rio, Lasky, the pilot, and even Escher Room. Continue to do this, but also bring back some of the cool moments we get to see from him like we do in Halo 2. As I said earlier in the video, moving away from the one-take cutscenes can help with this. Finally, let's just go over some of the features of Halo Infinite that would be nice to see included in the next Halo. First off, good gunplay. I can't really fault it too much. The weapons in Halo Infinite do feel nice to use and shoot. Yes, we need more classic additions like the M90 shotgun, but Halo Studios are on the right track for shooting in Halo, and this should continue. Throwable objects. The first time we can pick up a fusion coil and hurl it at an enemy, or other explosive things to make a bigger boom is awesome. This needs to stay, as it's one of those things that makes you feel like a Spartan. And they should continue with equipment like the grapple shot, drop shield, and motion scanner, for example, but double down and get some of the Halo 3 examples like the deployable mine, the bubble shield, and the grav lift. These are all great parts of the Halo sandbox, and I would like to see them come back. But that does bring us to the end of the video. I know I've missed a few things here, so perhaps we can make another video like this in the future. What do you miss from Halo? It could be a gameplay element, some kind of vehicle or weapon, a type of level design, could be some of the music, cutscenes, the story, you name it. So many things could come back for the next Halo to make it a real banger. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, do please leave a like, as that helps me out massively, and do consider subscribing for more content like this. But until next time, Spartans, I will see you in the next one.